There is a reason why leash walking training very often fails, and yes, we will look at training in this video as well. But first, what you need to do before you start training is stress reduction. And at the end I will link you a video on how exactly you can do that. But for now, let's say your dog can be stressed overall and your dog can be stressed on walks. Something like this. If you have garden time, like it's very beautiful outside, right? And you want your dog to be with you in your backyard or in your garden, and you have in your neighborhood dogs who are constantly barking. That can be very stressful for your dog. Some dogs handle it more easily, some dogs really get stressed by it. What can also stress your dog is alone time. So does your dog get stressed when he's home alone? And is that necessary like every day or every other day? So you have a huge stressor that appears every day. That is something that can be very influential when it comes to leash work. Same goes for if you're out on walks. Your dog can be stressed while you're on walks. Like same thing as with the barking in the yard, it can be the barking behind the fences. If you have to walk past several fences with barking dogs behind them, it can be really stressful for your dogs. And the more stressed your dog is by that, the more help he needs. So he needs a strategy to deal with that. Stress outside can also be caused by very interesting smells. And yes, young males often get stressed when females are in heat. Also, if your dog is very interested in wildlife smells can trigger your dog's stress level to go up, and it makes leash work harder. So you need to address that first, alright? And if you have done that, you can start training. And yes, you can start training with a stressed dog, but it's way harder. Your dog will have more difficulty learning what you expect of him, and you're not setting yourself up for success. You're making your life hard. So do the stress reduction first, and then we can step into training. And I like to do training in 2 phases. Phase 1, I teach my dog to stay within a specific radius around me, and that's the leash length. And in my experience, 6-foot leashes work really well because they give us a little bit of time to react, and it gives the dog space to sniff. In the beginning, I like to have the focus of my dog at least a little bit, so it makes things easier. But as we practice and as the dog gets more and more comfortable within this radius, we can let them sniff and do doggy stuff, right? And the second phase is an automatic recall. And I think this is really very comfortable for us. We can do that on a shorter leash and on a long line as well. What we teach our dogs is we take our usual recall and we couple it with the leash tension. So we teach our dogs that as soon as they feel tension on the leash, they come back to us. And cookie. Good. 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 Prima. And because I like to have training mode and non-training mode differentiated, because it's very hard for a dog to concentrate very long in the beginning of leash walking training, I like to use a long line for the non-training times. And for the long line, we actually only need the automatic recall and an end cue. So what I do is I use the end cue before the leash is at its end. And I like to just tie a knot in the leash so that I know when I have to cue my dog, and it's always the same length, right? Because dogs can get a feeling about the length. So whenever I feel the knot, I call the end cue. If my dog turns around, I can reward that. If my dog stops or gets slower, I can reward that. Ende. Prima. Super, Maus. Gut gemacht. Tüchtig. Good. If my dog runs ahead and the leash tenses up, I use my recall. Ende. Cookie. Good. Touch. Good. Prima. And with time and with multiple repetitions, the dog gets a feeling of whenever the end cue comes, there will be the end of the leash. And when the end of the leash hits, there will be a recall. It's always done exactly the same way. And you need to be very thorough with that. So every leash tension leads to you recalling your dog. That is necessary for your dog to recognize the pattern and actually learn what you want. All right? Tell me if your dog is pulling in the comments. I would love to know, and what length your leash has right now. And now, if you want to do the stress reduction and you need more information about how to do that, watch this.